So EA will be hosting its own specific event several days before E3, which is really exciting for a lot of different reasons. But of course, the reason I'm most excited for it is for Star Wars and what new games may be coming from EA soon. So several weeks ago, I made a video discussing how Electronic Arts and Activision were both going to be skipping E3 this year, 2016, for pretty much the first time. And it was a pretty big deal. A lot of interesting things coming out of that news because both Electronic Arts and Activision are two of, if not the two biggest third-party publishers and developers in the video game industry. And E3 is always the biggest trade show for the industry every year. Yes, there are other shows that are important, as I discussed, Gamescom and TGS being two of them, but E3 has always been kind of the king of news media for video games and what's happening in the industry and upcoming games and development and all this good stuff. So to have these two companies skipping E3 altogether was a pretty big deal. And, you know, I kind of discussed whether or not that was signifying the end of the importance of E3 or if things were going to be changing as far as how E3 plays out over the next couple of years. Now, something that I didn't really realize was happening at that time, this apparently was news dating back to January, but I didn't realize this until pretty much this last couple of days, is that in January, Electronic Arts also announced that not only would they be skipping E3, but that they would be hosting their own specific event just for Electronic Arts published and developed games that is going to be running for the weekend leading up to E3. So it's going to be a few days long. It's not going to happen alongside of E3, as in running across the same couple of days as E3, which is pretty smart. It's not going to be direct competition for the show. Like I said, it's going to be happening the weekend and the few days before E3. And I think that that's pretty cool so that we don't have to literally be worrying about, oh, all this E3 stuff is happening here and Electronic Arts stuff is happening here, and what do we pay attention to and where's the news coming from? It's pretty interesting. And through this, Electronic Arts is also going to be hosting their typical keynote speech, which normally happens during E3, or at least I should say a part of those events on that Monday before the show floor starts, or that Tuesday, the first day of the show floor. And with all this happening, you know, I wanted to discuss a little bit more of what they might actually show, mostly in terms of Star Wars games. Kind of makes me feel a little bit stupid for not having known this whole time that EA announced this event. And of course, this event is called EA Play, by the way. I did forget to mention that, but it's called EA Play, happening the weekend before E3 with their own specific keynote speech, the same one that they typically give every year at E3, happening on Sunday the 12th, if I'm remembering my date correctly. So that, you know, the weekend leading up to E3, EA Play stuff happens. That Sunday night, EA will have its press conference. And then that following Monday will be the first days of, like, you know, Sony and Microsoft and Ubisoft and stuff probably having their conferences. And then, of course, that Tuesday is the show floor and Nintendo's thing. All that stuff is going to happen like normal. We just won't have that EA conference because they're doing their own thing the Sunday before through their event. So now that I've mentioned all that, repeated it a couple of times so we really understand what's going on, like I said, I wanted to discuss what might be happening here because I didn't know that this was happening until just now. And I think that it's pretty interesting information. What is EA going to be showing us in terms of Star Wars games? That is the most important thing for me. I discussed it on that previous video. I've discussed it several times. We're at the point where EA has, you know, the Star Wars license for video games for many years, as I brought up a couple of times, and Battlefront came out in November. It's a deeply flawed game that feels incomplete in a lot of ways, but at the same time, I freaking love it. I play it all the time. I've been playing it today. I've been playing it this whole week. So there's so many good things that Battlefront does that I still ultimately see that game as really awesome, mostly for Star Wars fans. And as good as Battlefront is, you know, we know there's issues with it feeling kind of incomplete because there's all this, you know, season pass DLC stuff that's happening over the next year, and it's really too bad. And of course, it's only focusing on one small aspect and one small era of the universe. Granted, it's the most important. It's the original trilogy stuff that it's focusing on, which is awesome. Of course, my problems have stemmed from the fact that Battlefront typically is not focused on one era or one trilogy. The previous two games were focused on everything that made Star Wars great, all the original trilogy stuff and all the prequel stuff thrown into one game where there's no rules and everything goes. And this game doesn't do that. It's only original trilogy stuff. That's great, but what else are they going to be doing? At this point, EA needs to also show us what it means that they have this license, and I think that they're going to do that. I really expect to see a couple of things announced in the way of Star Wars this year from EA, and I mean, they need to do that. Not only do I hope that they do that, but they need to, because the fans the gaming public are going to start realizing, hey, Battlefront can't be the only real Star Wars game we have. We don't just want this mobile cell phone app stuff, and we don't just want Battlefront, not only because it's only one game, but because a lot of people are very unhappy with it, and understandably so. So will they show us other things? There's been a lot of things rumored coming out of EA. I think that there's a couple of things we may see. I think that it is possible that we see 1313. Now, 1313 is a big deal. We all remember when it was shown a couple of years ago. I think it was right before it was announced that Lucas was retiring and selling off Lucasfilm to Disney, which of course then led to the license going to EA. But regardless of when it was shown, we all remember how cool that trailer looked, and it was beautiful, and it looked like Uncharted set on Coruscant, and the whole game was supposed to take place on Coruscant. 1313 is actually a district within the planet and the Republic capital that is Coruscant. So there's a lot of cool things happening there, not just because it looked great visually, but because it's a game and a world that we wanted to get into. Coruscant is my number one favorite location in all of Star Wars, so to have another game set there was so exciting. The Old Republic stuff and the old Bounty Hunter game were set also on Coruscant, and that was just so cool. And I think that we should come back to it, and 1313 seemed like a great way to do it. And then, of course, the stupid thing was freaking canceled, or whatever happened with it because of LucasArts going away and EA taking over and Disney being involved, and just one of those boneheaded things. But a couple of months ago, Kathleen Kennedy, who now runs Lucasfilm, mentioned how a lot of the stuff that Lucas and the LucasArts team at the time were working on for 1313 still exists, and there's a lot of ideas that they want to go back and revisit, and she basically said that we may be looking at resurrecting 1313 in some way, shape, or form. So whether or not we see it this year, I'm not 100% certain, but I think that they might actually be working on that game, and I do think it's very likely that this would be the year for them to announce it. Even if they only made an announcement and showed the 1313 logo and said, hey, this game actually is going to be coming out soon, and they might not have gameplay to show us or a trailer, but if they just mention it and show a logo, that's going to get a lot of people excited. It'll definitely get me excited. So I think that this could be the year we see the resurrected form of 1313 in some way, and that would just be so very exciting. The other thing we need to see is Visceral's game. We've known that Amy Hennig left Naughty Dog a couple of years ago, joined EA and the Visceral team, which is an EA organization within that company, most well-known these last couple of years for the Dead Space games. And with her leaving and joining that team and the discussions and rumors about them working on a Star Wars game, I think that initially 1313 was a Visceral game. I don't remember if that's 100% true, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. But I do know that at this point, it's not confirmed that that's what Visceral will be working on. We do ultimately know they're making some kind of Star Wars game, and we have Amy Hennig of Naughty Dog fame working on it. I think that we could be getting something really exciting and really cool from them and that team and from her, because she really knows her stuff. So hopefully we find out exactly what Visceral is working on. Even if it's not a Star Wars game, I think we'll find out what they're working on. But all signs have been pointing to them working on something in the Star Wars universe, and it's very smart to know that EA is taking care of that Star Wars brand with a very strong team in Visceral. Very super excited to see what's happening there. Hopefully we learn what they're doing, and hopefully it turns out to be a really kick-ass Star Wars game. Now, another rumor that had been going around is some very open world sort of Star Wars game, which kind of could be 1313 or something along those lines. I'm hoping it's not. I hope 1313 is its own thing. I hope that Visceral Games is working on its own thing, a Star Wars game, and I hope that this other rumored open world Star Wars game, some sort of big sandbox kind of universe, could also be coming. Now, when you think about that, one of the first things my brain has always gone to when I've heard about that idea is BioWare, also an EA company, and the fact that they are most known for making the KOTOR universe, the Knights of the Old Republic video game universe, and it'd be really cool if they were making some sort of, I guess I don't want to necessarily say Old Republic. I've mentioned this a couple of times. I freaking love the Old Republic, you guys, but I think that it's a well that we've visited too many times. At this point, I think we need another couple of years of break from it. So I hope that they're making something maybe along those lines, but that's hopefully not set at that time. I would love it if they made it set during the time of the films. I'm still someone who wants a lot of Star Wars film-related games to be coming. If it's like an Episode 7 or an Episode 8 game, or if it's set during the prequel trilogy, or if it's set between the prequel and the original trilogy, anything like that. I want to see the characters that I know in a game. I want to control Anakin. I want to control Obi-Wan. I want to control Luke. or Han Solo, or Boba Fett, which could, I think, be something that is kind of wrapped into the 1313 game. So I hope that if there is some truth to this open world game, and if it's not being made by Visceral or another one of their teams, that it could be something that maybe BioWare has taken over, and they're making this big open world game similar to what the Old Republic stuff was, but hopefully not as heavy with the RPG stuff. I'd like it to be kind of more of an action-adventure game. Even though KOTOR, as an RPG, is my favorite Star Wars game of all time, I would like them to still go back into the action, or at least like an action game with RPG elements, like the same way like a Zelda or a Witcher or Fallout and Skyrim, stuff like that happens. I think that'd be great for a Star Wars game. And of course, BioWare would be the team to do it, but that's a little bit tough because we know that they're also working on Mass Effect and, for all we know, another Dragon Age and stuff. They're always busy working on those things. But, those are some of the main games that I think we might actually be seeing, or I think that we should hear from. Like I said, EA really needs to start giving us information on the future of their Star Wars license games. We need to start seeing more of this. I think that we might also see like a Rogue One tie-in game, and I think that would be perfect. There is so much you could do with a Rogue One game. It's the time to pump this movie. The trailer just dropped, and it's freaking awesome, way better than I expected. I was always very excited for this story. I don't think the movie is coming out at the right time, but I do think the movie looks fantastic. The story is going to be great. It takes place between the two trilogies, so you can kind of pull from both wells if you really want. Even though it's very close to the beginning of Episode 4: A New Hope, I think it'd be cool to pull from both of the universes, and I think the movie will do that too. Of course, they're in the film, it's the team that steals the Death Star plans and gets them to the rebellion, of course, before we see that weird old hippie guy show the rebellion team and Luke Skywalker where to blow up the Death Star at the end of A New Hope. It's those plans that those guys and that those people are stealing in this movie. And you have to think that they might be stealing them from, like, the Geonosians, because the Geonosians, we know, kind of created the plans for the Death Star and actually worked on it. So maybe you pull some of the prequel lore from the Geonosians into this game, and hopefully the movie, and then you also talk about how it feeds into the upcoming original trilogy events at the time that this story is happening. It'd be really great. And, typically movie tie-ins suck. Star Wars has done movie tie-ins before, and they've actually all been okay. None of them have been complete disasters. None of them have been fantastic either. But for some reason, I don't feel like we needed an Episode 7 tie-in game, and I don't think we need an Episode 8 tie-in game, although I'd be happy with them. I do think that Rogue One and that story and these characters exist in this unique sort of universe and world within the Star Wars universe that it could really make for a good game that kind of ties into the movie, recreates the movie, or expands on the material happening before, during, and after the movie, which, of course, after the movie basically is the beginning of A New Hope as far as what we understand. So there's a really cool opportunity there, I think. But I just wanted to talk about what's happening with EA and their EA Play event, and the fact that it's probably going to mean a whole slew of information about other Star Wars games. Maybe expansions upon Battlefront, that'd be fine, I guess, more of what they might do there. Maybe they're making another Battlefront spin-off game, and I'd love it if they did it revolving around the prequels, of course. Are we going to see Visceral's Star Wars game? Is there an open world game? Is BioWare involved? Is 1313 getting resurrected? All of this is very exciting. There's a couple of other things we could also expect to hear from EA during their EA Play event as well, if I could even speak this morning. Because still, I'm very excited to learn what else they might be doing. A Titanfall teaser trailer apparently just dropped this morning that I've yet to watch. Titanfall 2. I guess it's like 45 seconds long. I haven't seen it. It's probably going to be great. I'm very excited for Titanfall 2. I think that there's a lot of cool things they could be doing there. The first one was a very good game. So we're obviously going to get a lot of time spent on Titanfall 2. I do think we're going to see a lot more about Mass Effect Andromeda. The rumor is that there was some leaked footage and gameplay that came out recently that apparently looks very, very good. I love Mass Effect. I can't wait to get back into that universe. Even though we probably won't have Commander Shepard and that sucks, I think it's going to be really, really fantastic. Is Visceral Games working on something that isn't a Star Wars game? Like I said, if that's true, I do think that we'll learn what they're working on, regardless of if it's Star Wars or something else. I think we might see Dead Space 4 finally. I actually think that's almost a slam dunk that Dead Space 4 is going to be coming and showed in some way, shape, or form. Maybe we learn that Visceral is still working on that, but I have this weird feeling that it's confirmed, not confirmed, but that the rumors say that they're not. Since the rumors say Visceral is working on a Star Wars game, does that mean they have a different team working on the fourth iteration in the Dead Space franchise? I'd be very excited to see what's happening there. Dead Spaces 1 and 2 were awesome. Dead Space 3 was okay. But 1 and 2 are so fantastic. I'd love to see that come back in some way as well. And also, last but not least, I think we'll probably hear of like a brand new IP or two. You know, they'll talk about other things and like Old Republic servers for the MMO and things like that. But I really think we're probably going to also see a new game or two. And I think that would be really, really exciting. So what kind of Star Wars games will we see? What will we see about Titanfall 2 or Dead Space 4, Mass Effect? Will we get a brand new game or two from EA? You guys discuss below. I was really mostly excited to talk about the Star Wars stuff. Just yesterday, me and a bunch of my buddies had a prequel trilogy marathon, and we watched all of episodes 1, 2, and 3 together in one day, and it was super awesome. We all enjoyed it, had a lot of fun. I freaking love those movies. We're probably going to do an original trilogy, 4, 5, and 6 pretty soon. We'll throw episode 7 in there at some point. You know, I'm kind of like in the middle of celebrating Star Wars right now, and which I actually always am doing, but in a specific way, because episode 7 just came out on Blu-ray. Episode 8 is just next year. And Rogue One's coming out soon. We just watched all the prequels. I mean, I just feel Star Wars love like in the air. So I was excited to talk about this. What do you guys think we'll see from EA during this EA Play event in general? Whether it's Star Wars games or non-Star Wars games. Tell me what you think about this stuff. What do you think about my Star Wars theories and guesses for EA Play this year? And that's pretty much it, guys. So, of course, as always, thanks for tuning in. This is Rob of Rule 2 Review, and I'll catch you guys next time on another video.